So basically what Leigh wanted to show in his book Endgame was 3 different ways to live your life, the 3 pathways. So there's the getting pathway, the doing pathway, and the creating pathway. Now each of these are, the getting pathway is when you focus all your time, energy, and attention on getting something external. The doing pathway is where you're not as concerned about getting, you're more concerned about doing what you love. So it's about, life to you is about what you do. Maybe you want to become a professional basketball player. That's something that someone in the doing pathway would want. Or maybe you realize that you love photography, so whatever your job is, you want to be able to do what you love. And then finally there's the creating pathway. The creating pathway is about having a purpose, and everything you do is to create a better world. So the natural question is, how do you go from the getting to the doing to the creating pathway? And the way to do that is through, well, the first thing is that you need to understand the scales of consciousness. And basically there are 10 scales of consciousness that you could go up like a ladder. Alright, so these are the 10 different scales of consciousness. So let's start with Mr. Fearful. Mr. Fearful is just basically afraid, and he lives his life to please people and just not really doing anything for himself, just trying to get by and not get into trouble. Then one step up from that is Mr. Desire. Mr. Desire is like Mr. Fearful. He pleases people. He's not himself, just like Mr. Fearful, out of fear. The only difference is Mr. Desire knows that he desires something, and he only acts this way to something that he wants. So for example, in terms of a job, he'll act fearful, he'll be a people pleaser when he's at an interview in order to get the job he wants. He will not act like this with just random people. It's only for the things that he desires. And that's basically the difference between Mr. Desire and Mr. Fearful. And there's Mr. Anger. Mr. Anger realizes that he's not going to just get what he wants. No one's going to just give it to him. No one's going to hand it to him on a silver platter. He has to go and take it. He has to go and take what he wants out of life. However, he's still in kind of that low consciousness, so he does whatever he has to do to get it. So he is kind of a go-getter. The next step up is Mr. Pride. Mr. Pride, he's the end of the getting path. So these 4 scales of consciousness are people that are trying to get something. This is your natural state. Your scales of consciousness are your natural state, how you naturally feel most of the time. So Mr. Pride, he's at the end of the getting pathway because he's gotten everything he wants. He's created the world that he wants to create. His external world is the same as his internal desire. So he has the job he wants, he has the relationship he wants, he has all the stuff he wants. His external world is as good as his inner desires. However, the problem with Mr. Pride is that he realizes that no amount of money, nothing makes him happy. So like you take like a Hollywood celebrity, they have everything they want. They have the fame, the glory, the money, and so a lot of them turn to drugs because they're not happy and they don't know what to do with their life. Well, the problem is what they need to do is they need to step up the scale of consciousness from Mr. Pride to Mr. Courage. And Mr. Courage basically realizes that he needs to do something, and that's where he gets his satisfaction. So it could be some kind of hobby or a skill, and he basically wants to do that, and that's kind of what he wants his life to be about. Okay, next is Mr. Neutrality. Mr. Neutrality basically, he's basically at the end of the doing pathway. He sets his life around what he wants to do. So if he wants to, for example, let's say he wants to be an actor or actress, he basically set his world around being able to do that. He's able to, in a strategic way, so he's able to, maybe he's famous and now he's acting, or maybe he's acting in like lower end movies, but his world, his career is about acting, so he does what he loves. Or maybe he just found a smaller job, or maybe he found a way to make a living off of YouTube, for example, and he's able to do short skits, and he's making enough for him to do what he loves as his world. That's what his world is. So that's kind of at the end of the doing pathway, and these people are happy. They enjoy what they do, and they're happy where they are. However, the next step up, Mr. Willingness, he's kind of a bridge between the doing pathway and the creating pathway. So he's a bridge. Mr. Willingness just knows that he wants to change the world in some way. He's willing to change the world. He wants to dedicate his life to changing the world in some way. He's out of his own problems, and he's into other people's problems. He's abundant in his own life, and he has so much. He's so happy. He doesn't need anything more. He's happy with what he does. He just wants to give to the world now. That's Mr. Willingness. But he doesn't know how. Then comes the actual creating pathway. There's Mr. Acceptance. And Mr. Acceptance, he realizes that he has a purpose for the world. And the next step up is Mr. Reason. And Mr. Reason basically spends his time trying to achieve his calling. And then finally there's Mr. Love, who lives to make the world a better place, and basically everything he does has love and passion into it. So this is things like Gandhi, Mother Teresa, Buddha. They're at Mr. Love. So as you can see, different states of consciousness have different pathways. So the way to go up the consciousness is basically to realize what you want, where you want to be, and create your life around that. And there's 5 different things you could do to help you elevate your state of consciousness. And here they are. So these 5 dependencies are as follows. So situational dependency is when you assign responsibility of your life situation on something other than your own decisions. So your current situation, the current job you have, your current living situation, you have to realize that it's based off of your own decisions, and you could change it. It's hard, but you could change it. So that's the situational dependency that you need to find a way to get rid of. Psychological dependency is when you allow anything external to dictate your morals, your values, your vision, your purpose. It's everything about you. Everything about your psychology, you want it to be your own and not based off of the external world. So these dependencies, you have to find a way to let go of them to reach true freedom, to allow you to raise your state of consciousness to whatever you want it to be. Physical dependency is when you assign your ability to take action on something external. So this is about being able to not make excuses. It's about taking action, no excuses. Situational is about taking risks, being able to take the risk, knowing you'll survive. Psychological is about living in your own world. Emotional dependency is how you choose to feel. It's based off of your own desires and drives and not based off of what other people did. So you could choose to feel happy, you could choose to feel angry, you could choose how you want to feel about something based off of your own desires. Finally, experiential dependency is how you choose to experience the world. If you feel trapped, if you feel free, if you are in scarcity, if you're abundant, your experience of the world is all based off of your own decisions. So that's it. Once you let go of these 5 different dependencies, then you'll be able to choose how you want to live the world. You'll be able to create the world that you want to create. You'll be able to create your life the way you want it to create, which will allow you to move up the scales of consciousness, which will allow you to move up the pathways and ultimately live a much more fulfilled and happy life by living through the creating pathway. If you're in the getting pathway, it'll allow you to get the stuff that you want. If you're in the doing pathway, it'll allow you to do the stuff you want. And if you're in the creating pathway, it'll allow you to create the world you want. So that's it, and thank you for watching.